Hello! Olá, aqui é a Maria Carmo, embaixadora Cardano, e hoje eu trouxe o Umed para falar com a gente sobre a experiência dele. A entrevista vai ser em inglês. Por favor, ative a legenda automática do YouTube. Muito obrigada. Hello, Umed, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Maria, and thanks for inviting me to your podcast. It's always a pleasure to be invited to one of the community members, and you're quite prominent in Cardano. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much. Well, I like to know people. I'd like to know what's the story behind. I have my story and you have yours. And I saw your story in We Are Cardano and I thought, wow, I have to show my community what the Cardano is about. And I think you are there, the person with a lot of knowledge of finances and economics. And I just want to show, how we are as a community. So the first questions I have for you, and I hope you are ready, is where are you from? I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, so I come from actually my origins. I was born in Soviet Union back in the day. This specific place where I was born is called now Tajikistan. It's in Central Asia. And it's a very small mountainous country that has very, very friendly and welcoming people. So my cultural background is, if you think about it, is of Persian origin. I speak Russian, I speak French, I speak English, I speak Tajik, which is, a variation of Persian. So that's basically my cultural and background.
You make me so jealous speaking so many languages. I just speak Portuguese and English, and I do understand Spanish. I can't speak Spanish, but if I'm reading or if someone is talking to you, I kind of can follow the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite speak French fluently, but I can understand. I lived in France. I studied in France, so not that I got a lot of exposure to the French culture, but I do understand, and I love that language too.
How was to grow up in your city, in your family, the surrounds around you? Tell me a little bit, what was the challenges, what your father used to tell you about money, about financials? What was the beliefs you grow up with?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, Maria, because I grew up, in a system that was very well protected, and the best thing that I can tell you to describe it is when I watch documentaries about North Korea and Cuba, and I get that sense of like, my childhood, where things were very air gapped, very controlled. Everything that we used to hear on the news was presented to us with the slant of propaganda. I mean, let's be honest with you. I remember thinking that we're gonna die because we were told that the United States is gonna do X, Y, and Z, and they're so bad. Everybody is so poor there. There's a lot of oppressed people. You see these riots. We don't have them in Soviet Union. Things like that. So those were the images of the West presented to us as we grew up. I always questioned that, to be honest with you. And as my curiosity started blooming as a teenager, I started questioning some of the fundamentals that we were taught in school. Like why do we, I would watch some of the movies that started getting um, into the post-Soviet systems, and then I started asking myself, like, okay, if the West is so bad, why is there so much freedom and there's so much, yeah, they show that there is some poverty and the people are homeless and all that, but at the same time, the level of interaction, the type of things that we see on the movies, again, shouldn't be a proxy for everything, but started questioning a lot of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I grew up actually having no idea about how the economy worked. And you sort of didn't have to know in that respect. Like I remember my brother studied, well, the closest thing you can think about economics, and this was like political economy. That's what they would basically study. And my basic my basic understanding of how the Soviet Union worked was that everything was planned 5 years ahead, and then if the plans were not, uh, uh, you know, uh, the plans did not take into consideration the actual demand, then you would have surpluses and shortages. And they were quite rampant, to be honest. You would have a lot of things one year produced, and then not enough things produced elsewhere. And that was basically the reason for that to exist actually had to do with efficient markets, which is a construct of a free economy, free market economy, and that did not exist because the uh, um, the prevailing thought process and the prevailing party did not believe in these concepts as necessary in order to function in a society. And that actually backfired a lot because as we grew up, we started questioning about you know things about the system, especially me. I was very, curious child, and when I'm told not to think about something, or when I'm told not to talk about something, it just basically triggers something completely opposite. So I
I
started
know.
questioning a lot of stuff. So that's how I kind of, at the end of the day, came to be exposed to market economy. I mean, there's a lot of other factors along the way. If Soviet Union falling apart is a big one,
Hmm.
because we actually got exposed to the global economy in its un unfiltered form. And that actually, when I was a teenager, that happened, and it influenced me a lot because I saw a transition from a centralized planned economy and to a market economy in many countries, in Central Asia and Russia itself when I lived there also. And it was a painful transition for many people, to a degree that a lot of people would think, hey, Soviet Union was great because it was stable and things like that. um, to which I would say, yes, the transition is always stable, is painful because people are used to one way of doing things, and now they have to learn about doing things differently. But overall, I think the population got exposed to so many new things, and you know, I think the greatest crime of regimes like the Soviet Union, or any oppressive regime that basically tries to limit market economy and democracies in a very, very truest sense, is that um, it it basically limits the human potential. So wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever your potential is as an individual, you are being curtailed, and that is actually a loss to the country and the world as in general.
What I like about you it is I see a little bit of my story on your story when you say about the black bread and the white bread, this type of control. I didn't have much in my childhood because my family is a very humble family. But when you say that you have this shortage of things and you have to, it was challenging, life was challenging. I love it because it's why we are in Cardano, because we believe that the next stage of the world going to a better place, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I think there is in I lived and worked in many countries, right, and different political environments and whatnot, and one of the things that I realized working in these different environments is that the problems that the wider populations have, they almost always stem from the lack of governance, proper governance. And that in itself is a result of some form of centralization. I mean, if you think about democracy is actually a form of decentralization. So you basically say, I don't have a power as a person, but you delegate your power. If you think about it, delegation in Cardano's ecosystem, for instance, right? People vote politicians to office to decide certain things for them, because they kind of have a confidence in the candidate. And as soon as that confidence is breached or diminished, that candidate loses the support of the population. That's not always the case, and the population doesn't always get that luxury of voting in or voting out the people. Now, and that's exacerbated if the countries actually have a total control over the media, because they can then brainwash their population to think or say or do anything they want. And that was the unfortunate case in the Soviet Union. We were taught that, this is the best country in the world. And when I talk about white bread and black bread, don't get me wrong, it wasn't poverty at all. I mean, we had really good educational system, right? You would get your education, you would have really good medical care. But beyond that, beyond the necessities, the potential of people and the diversity of wants and needs was not taken into consideration by the system. And the case in point is white bread and black bread, right? I basically, one of the challenging things when I came to the States was actually picking a hamburger on a menu, right? I would just come to, like, I don't know, the Hardee's. I think that was the name of the restaurant. And the first time I came across making a choice, my classmates were like, "Oh, I want this hamburger with onions and then no lettuce, please. And I want this sauce on it, and I don't want buns on it." Or, I mean, they were like making so many different choices, and I was like, give me number four. That was like basically, pre-made meal. And I would say, I don't know what this meal is all about, because I have not been exposed to its ingredients and what I like and what I don't like. So I would just basically say, I want number four, I want number five, or whatever, and I would just eat it and I'll be like, wow, this is great. So imagine a person growing with a very limited choice. And I'm not saying that we were poor or hungry or anything like that. That's not the case. It's just that we had very limited choices. That's because the government decided that, oh, that's enough for you guys. You have, the spectrum of your wants is dictated by what we can produce or we won't produce, because we have all these other things, priorities like defense. And arguably you could say that the Soviet Union spent a lot of money on defense, and that was basically its demise, because it didn't have a vibrant economy as a result. Think about cars I don't know if you know about cars in Soviet Union, but when the Soviet Union fell apart and everybody started importing cars, the local car manufacturers, they completely lost the market because they were protected and they never evolved beyond producing some basic form of car. So anytime you would get into a Soviet car or Russian car, I should say, you would just basically transport back to the 50s. It was like kind of a time machine. And nobody, after having ridden in a Toyota that was like 20 years old, that was better than the new car that would be produced in Russia, would actually want to buy a Russian car. And no matter how much you could incentivize the local producers, and they completely lost the game. So I mean, I guess the point I was trying to make is that it's not that we were poor or structurally disadvantaged. It's just that the mentality and the ideology let us believe that this is all there is, and you should be happy because the rest of the world is really scary and there's a lot of problems out there. And they would just pluck the really bad situations in the United States, for instance, and show the homeless. I remember, watching the footage of like, news footage, and I would say to myself, like, why is there so many problems in America and things like that? Of course, all of that was wrong. It's, and as I moved to the United States, and became an adult, and I started thinking for myself, I made these observations for myself, and it's a completely different environment, and the fact that you're fed all that propaganda is actually, for the intellectually curious, it makes them even want more, to go and explore the outside world. Also, I wanted to say that the pair of jeans in Soviet Union that would probably cost you $20 in the US would fetch like $100 or $300 equivalent in Russian rubles or whatnot, or Soviet rubles. And it was such a I started seeing the transition as I grew up, because it's all these goods and movies and better sort of types of I would say goods, yeah, would make their way into the Soviet Union, and we could see the quality between the quality that was produced by some factory in Russia or Belarus, and the quality that we would get from that would be forged by the demands of a very demanding consumer in the United States. You could see that the quality of products was very superior, and of course people would you know wear those kind of things with a big pride. So there was, despite the fact that Soviet Union was portrayed to be like, oh yeah, we don't have classes or different categories of people, there was a clear distinction between the party members, with distinction, and the rest of the guys who did not make it. So it's like no matter what, there is there are things that I always think about between my childhood and what I experience right now. But I mean, I kind of grew up in that environment. I wouldn't say that I grew up, but I yeah, until the age of 17 or 18, and then everything completely changed after that. So I would say that most part of my adulthood I spent in the United States. So my mentality has been shaped by American values and American standards, and I love this country as an American.
It's very nice to hear you saying that. As you were talking, things flashes coming to my head. I have been in Germany, in Berlin, and I did that tour, and the guy explained that to buy a Volkswagen, if I'm not mistaken, you would be in a queue for 5 years. And if your phone rings and you didn't answer, you miss your spot in the line. It just blows my mind because we take everything for granted today. Like you have an Amazon, you have eBay, you have this and you have that. And in this moment in history, these people have to wait for 5 years to have a car. In Brazil, there is a little bit different. We have very low class and we have medium class and rich class. The medium class and rich class, they are closer to each other, but the medium class to the poor class, they are very, very apart. And there's, even though my country is rich in many, many, many things, we have difficulties, and we're solving some problems and other problems are coming up, but it's always a struggle. The medium guy, the normal guy in the street in Brazil, I would say today, they are suffering from all these monetary systems that we have, or economical system, or even the failure of education. Is why I think it's so important you being in front of camera, other people being in front of camera, to motivate these people to come along, to show themselves, and to be part of what we are building here. I feel so proud, and I kind of get tears in my eyes on the video that Charles says, if you allow us, we'll change the world. We are Cardano. I thought was wow. And it's what we're doing here. We are showing to people who we are, to motivate them to come to the revolution with us, because it is a revolution. Maybe it's not the revolution you have in your country back then, many, many years ago, but it's still a revolution.
Absolutely, I agree.
So you tell me, what was this, you left linguistics to go to economics. How was it? You come from one area and went to another area.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have to realize that when I started, well, here's the thing. In Soviet Union, and I guess former Soviet Union right now, the educational system is very rigid. So once you graduate your high school, you are forced to pick a profession, right? And that was probably the hardest thing for me to adapt in the United States. But once you pick that profession, you kind of are stuck. So you commit yourself to 5 years of studying and becoming somebody, right?
Mhm.
So at the time when things were changing very fast, the Soviet Union fell apart. My parents lost their life savings, and we started basically thinking about like what we can do. I mean, like my mom was a doctor, so she could always find work and have income. My dad was in sort of in the internal services, which is like a defense, it's like a police kind of thing in former Soviet Union. So but the fact was that we had to always adapt to our new environments, and I did not have a clear understanding of what I wanted to do because of the fact that I was exposed to um, so little things, in terms of what I wanted to be. So I talked to my mom and I said, I want to be a doctor or a surgeon. And she said, this is crazy. You don't want to be a doctor because you will not have a life. You will be asked to come and do operations like I do. There was no weekends, and if there's a patient, you have to like sort of always be on your toe. And then I said I want to be, in the a law enforcement like my dad. And my dad said, no, this is not a good life. So those were the two things that I wanted to do, and they talked me out of it. And I started thinking about like what what is something that excites me. And I was always good with languages, always. I speak Russian fluently. I speak my own language in English. I would like to say that it's pretty much like ingrained in my mind. But so yeah, my mom said, why don't you try and learn English, because the borders fell apart. And somebody with good English linguistics skills would be a very high demand, in high demand. And she was very right. And then I decided that I'm going to do that. And I studied for one year. And after that, I applied for a job as a I wouldn't say it wasn't what was a paid intern in the United Nations. And got a job after 3 months. I was done. I just did not want to study linguistics anymore, because I was already working as somebody would have worked after 5 years of studying linguistics, or English or whatnot. So that was basically my shortest path to the profession. But while I was working, my first boss was an American. And he always taught me to think 2 or 3 steps ahead. And he said, Umed, this is a great thing that you're, exposing yourself to these, new ideas. And I cannot thank him enough for being a mentor, and sort of kind of a second father figure for me, because he was very wise. And then he said, look, Umed, English is a great thing to start because it opens the doors and everything, but you want to do something else with your life. And that kind of thought, and that idea kind of stuck with me. And when I came to the United States as an exchange student, I wanted to be a diplomat. And then you know I I realized that I don't like to be a diplomat or international. I don't like to be in politics or international relations. I wanted to do something concrete. And there was another guy who was telling me that he couldn't find a job after getting his political science degree. No offense for those people who want to, be in political science. I have family members who are, finished political science degrees, and they're pretty prominent members in governments and whatnot. So it's just that it didn't. I wanted something concrete, and I was very fascinated by markets. The first lesson that I took, the first course that I took in Econ 101, was
Mhm.
just an eye opener. I immediately knew that this is something that I would want to do, would like to explore, and my mind just went there. It's like a rabbit hole for me at that point. And fast forward 10 or 15 years, I guess 20 years, And I'm a financial professional with a CF. I have a CFA. I'm a CFA charter holder, which is like one of the hardest tests you can pass in the finance industry. I have an MBA and whatnot. I don't want to talk about it too much, but the thing is that I just followed my intellectual curiosity, and that's where it led me.
I see. But the questions I want to ask you the most, and the question I am asked all the time, but I want to ask you because you have this background of word, the wall falling down, the economic side of that you learn as you grow up there, and then you change to America, and now you're here after all these years, and why Cardano?
Oh, Cardano, it's a it's a great question. Well, you have to realize that I'm a trained financial professional, which means that I'm very skeptical about uh, the type of projects or the type of investments I'm required to see. And in 2017, I was invited to come to a blockchain conference in New York. I got a free ticket, and I decided I'm just going to give it a try. And to be honest with you, I wasn't very impressed by the projects that were presented there, and because there were a lot of ICOs that looked like scams, outright scams, because I couldn't connect why they needed the money and how does that solve their a need, and why do they need tokens. And granted, I always was I had I always had reservations about my own judgment. Whenever you don't understand something, it doesn't mean that something isn't right. There, in most cases, if not, it's something that you don't understand, and it's a great sort of avenue for yourself every time you're faced with a situation you don't understand, or you think that you understand, but and something is a scam, for instance. Um, it's a great mental exercise to go through your thought process to formulate your understanding and check it with the outside world. And that actually led me to Bitcoin paper. I started reading that, and that led me to explore hashes, hash functions. And after the hash functions, I came across hash functions and the public private key, because those two concepts are fundamental in understanding blockchain and why it works. And once you get those, you start understanding the implications. These are very fundamental sort of concepts that were in floating in the IT industry and in the computer industry from 70s, for instance, the cryptography.
Hmm.
But the Bitcoin was the first attempt to put all of them together and make it work in a very hostile environment, and that was a fascinating way of ensuring that a monetary system like Bitcoin would work. And after that, I started basically looking at Ethereum. Um, but then I started realizing that there is an inherent shortcoming in the transactions processed, and it had to do something with the proof of work as an algorithm, and that basically started making me to think about alternatives. And when I started looking outside of Ethereum, I realized that there is not a whole lot of projects out there that could effectively address the issue, and stay decentralized and stay true to the tenets of capped supply and hard money. And the only project that could tick all of those boxes was Cardano. And at that point, we had a wallet and a federated sort of a network of seven validators, or seven what we call pools, I guess you can call them pools. But then I read I, but then I came across all these papers and I read them, and I was convinced that even if it's not yet fully implemented, but I would want to support a project like Cardano because it ticks so many boxes for me as an individual, and in terms of philosophy, in terms of its architecture, and in terms of the end goals that it tries to achieve. And that was basically the main reason why I kind of joined the community and started becoming active.
I love your interview with Charles. I love the questions, but you are way beyond my intellect sometimes. And I have to watch 2 times or 3 times. Even in Charles' videos, sometimes I have to watch 2 times to make sure I understand what he's saying, because it's frightening being here in this environment where so many new words, so many new concepts to grasp. And I'm here, I'm an ambassador, but I'm not from IT background. And I'm here as a proof that anyone can get involved with Cardano, and you can contribute the way you can possibly can. For example, I'm a teacher, so I put together the Lovelin's Academy. Um, to be my part of my contribution to the community, and I hope we get funded. The other thing I was going to ask you, what was the best experience you have in the community? Because the community is wonderful. And for you, what was the best experience?
I have to say that it was early days in the 2017, 2018, when I just got introduced to the community, and I had lots of questions, just like you now joining. I don't know when you joined, but I had lots of questions that were answered, and I interacted with a lot of people with IT background, developer background, and I kind of sort of had the time to read the papers, analyze them, and then bounce ideas off of these very smart individuals who know this industry and know the IT and the technology really well. And that kind of formed my what we call a mental canvas, where you can actually start reasoning about things very logically. And that's one of the things. If you have a logical mind, it's very easy to just basically populate it with the concepts that are important in the fundamental concepts in the blockchain. And once you have that, everything else just kind of falls into place. And maybe my background as a finance professional kind of helps, because we evaluate a lot of concepts, and we have the mental capacity to sift through a lot of analytical sort of information, and weed out the unnecessary sort of jargon or whatnot, or at least make the links and understand them really fast. But yeah, though I would say that my best experience was actually interacting with early um, developers and IT and professionals in this space to validate my views, or to basically understand and question um, some of the concepts. And it built a lot of I mean, I'm very impressed to this day by the community itself, and I'm trying to contribute as much as I can, from governance, as you've seen today, to analyzing data and trying to understand how things work and why they work the way they do. And that's because I've studied it for the past 2 years and whatnot very closely. And that's my way of contributing to back to the community.
So tell me what you think about Catalyst. I think many countries have been very affected by the political systems. And I think in the day we could bring elections to the blockchain, or few and other systems to the blockchain, we could be way better. But tell me what you think about Catalyst, our democracy system.
So yeah, Catalyst has I mean, we have with Catalyst we have an enormous opportunity to reshape um, the future of democracy as we know it. And one of the things that I really like when Charles talks about it is liquid democracy, right? And this is something that we could actually iterate in the Cardano community before making it available, or at least offering it to whoever else might be interested. But we have a unique chance of implementing the types of voting systems that would that will allow people to make very well informed and better decisions. And one of the challenges that we have with current democracies even is that we elect one person, and he represents us and our views from greenhouse gases to like balancing a budget. And we might have as individuals different kind of sort of preferences on all these different kinds of issues. And the best way I could describe it is, I don't know if you've lived in the US or any other places, but we used to have these cable companies, right? And when you when you sign up for a cable company, you have a bunch of what we call options. And if you are signing up for a plan, and you like, let's say you like to watch uh, NFL, National Football League, or whatever, American football or hockey, and then and then a couple of other things, National Geographic or anything like that, and you'd be hard pressed to actually pick those channels. You would be giving a choice of like, oh, you want to watch NFL? Oh, we'll give you these 10 useless channels that you will probably never watch, and you will have to make choices very sort of strategically, in a sense, and say, okay, well, I mean, I like NFL and NHL, for instance, but I also like National Geographic, but they're in two different packages. So, and you're going to be you would be forced to make a choice for one package, because you can't have two packages, and it's you can't afford two packages. Or if you want both channels, then there's a third package, but it's just like so many channels that you don't want to watch that it just makes it too expensive for you. But anyway, with politicians, we kind of have that sort of packaging environment where we pick somebody, and we essentially pick somebody that's least objectionable, in a sense, and that creates I mean, it's better than somebody dictating you what to do, but it could be made better. And the best way you can think about improving that system is by basically thinking iTunes, right? In iTunes, if I like a track from an artist, I just buy that single track, and I don't have to worry about all these other songs that they produced. I don't care. I just buy that for 99 cents, and that's basically what I like, and that creates a lot of utility for people. And I think the same way could be uh, uh, we could analyze the policy and governance in the same way. So we could pick somebody to vote on certain issues, um, and that person would represents our views. It could be for any other party or whatnot. And then if we want this issue or that issue, let's say that I want somebody from a green party to vote on greenhouse gases and whatnot, if I'm really passionate about that. But I want somebody, let's say, from a Republican party to vote on the budget, because I know that this person would be financially responsible and things like that. So um, the architecture of the blockchain and the way that we are building it will allow us to actually have these kind of functionalities. And once we iron out all the kinks, sky's the limit.
I know. So tell me about your proposal. How was to make a proposal? How was the interaction with the public? Tell me all your process in the Catalyst, please.
Yeah, so in the Catalyst, in round two, I had two proposals in place. One is the proposal to get funded for Slot Leader, which is a podcast that tries to basically bring in the talent and the attention of the financial community and the business community, which I'm part of through my decades of experience in traditional financial industry. And the second one is I'm part of the Pool Tool team that is building a platform to provide rich analytical information for anybody who would like to understand the ecosystem really well, both the delegators and the pool operators. And we're trying to basically build a set of suite of tools that will make the interaction meaningful in many ways. So as a proposer, I think that the first iteration was quite interesting in the sense of seeing how the community came together in order to try to assess the projects, and what kind of feedbacks they had. I had some really good feedback on projects, but I also saw some not so really great feedback in the sense that people would just come in and comment on your proposal just by the sheer numbers, and try to create a negativity around projects. And that wasn't only my projects. I saw that with a lot of other projects, and I thought that that part could be improved a little bit. And that's the risk of open blockchain systems like this, because nobody curates these comments, nobody curates the participation, and you get a whole spectrum of behavior, from those people who just want to come in and rate as many projects as they want, because game theoretically you get paid for your reviews, and if your reviews are really bad, you actually aren't producing any utility for the ecosystem. So maybe that part needs to kind of be worked on a little bit. But other than that, I mean, it's been quite an interesting experience. And I know that this is just a first round or a second round, well, actually first funded round of projects. So, but I know that Door and everybody who is involved in this project are working really well to make it an iterated to a very robust system.
Yes, I feel that was a very work intense project, because I hold my baby very close to my chest, maybe, and I want to answer all the questions in my project. And part from it, I want to ask the right questions to other people, because people are coming to me and say, Maria, could you see my proposal? And I always go and read people's proposal and then ask the questions that the people could improve their proposal. Some people come around and they are angry and they are raging, and it doesn't help me as a proposal, doesn't help the person who's asking, it doesn't help who's reading. So I don't know if you see Charles' interview with me, he always say about positive participation. Is what I try to do. Even though I'm not an IT person, I try to give this positive participation with people. And if you're watching now and you're gonna have a proposal in Found Tree, and if you think I could read and make good questions, please do. You can a link here in the comments. So I think for today is all that I have to ask you. Do you think anything about legislation is coming from us, from Biden or his team?
I generally think that one thing I know, that the Trump administration was not very friendly to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general, and I think that was a misfortunate set of events, maybe even uh, perpetuated by whoever was the incumbents and whatnot. But I think with at least with the coming administration, we have that question open again. And my thinking is that open blockchain should be viewed as internet, and a subset of internet. And the best way to think about it is to assume that open blockchain is going to exist, and it will create value. And the best way to capture that value is to build something on top of it, build companies, or have the developers that would live in your country to build on that infrastructure. And if you think about it, right, in 90s, right, internet is just coming to life. Every country had sort of the same chance to build projects, to build companies that would leverage this technology to actually dominate on this sort of in this sphere. And the United States actually embraced internet and started basically commercializing it. And that was actually a very good move, because we started growing really fast, and that was the time when we needed the growth. And fast forward to today, we are in the same kind of position where we are kind of slowing down. The stock market and the bond market and every other asset you can think about it is overbought, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because we have printed so much money. and we need growth. And the only exciting place that I can think of right now is blockchain, and how it's moving and how fast it's moving and how much innovation is taking place in this industry. And I cannot help but think that this particular subset of internet, I will call it, is going to play a crucial role in the global economy and global commerce. And we know that at this point, and even when it's very nascent, in its very nascent stage, it is very competitive in terms of transferring value across borders. The existing avenues of transferring money have been completely disrupted, and they are not necessary. We know that for sure. And we are in a position right now where we are finding ourselves with new paradigm, and we need to adopt our economies to actually leverage this technology rather than try to overregulate it or stifle it, because there's an enormous potential blockchain has an enormous potential, especially open kind has an enormous potential for bringing in all that economic activity and tapping into a global pool of talent, and uh, you know encouraging growth, economic growth.
Um, I was watching the Charles video the other day, always Charles because I love his videos. I learn a lot. And he talked about a financial collapse for 2021. Do you see this coming? And when do you think it would probably happen? I was thinking about something in January as the new administration come in and have all to deal with the cases of COVID, and some countries already shut down. I'm in lockdown completely at the moment.
I mean, we've known this already for a while, that the demand side has completely contracted, and the only reason why the economy is still functioning is that we've printed so much money and handed out so much money, that it's just unbelievable. But no, I wouldn't. I don't have the information to make that judgment, to be honest. When the financial collapse will happen or whether it will happen or not. What I know for sure is that printing money was probably the only right course of action given the circumstances globally. But it has repercussions for the wider community and wider economic sort of it has implications, wider economic implications. Now, it also COVID and 2020 basically taught us one other thing, that we are in a world where it's the nature of work itself is changing, and we probably don't need as much as we used to. And I think in some ways we are maybe permanently changing the way that we work, and with remote work becoming more and more important. And when you take away that from going to the office, from the equation, you can see that the uh, the structure of the economy could change in the future towards you know towards platforms like Cardano, where the economic activity could pick up, and we could see a surge in demand and supply, and the applications being built on top. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how to how to answer that question, to be honest with you, but I think that 2020 introduced a fundamental shift in how we how the global economy works in general, and it increased the adoption of digitization of value, and it was very good for cryptocurrencies as a use case, I would say.
Any taking on real estate? Here we are in the house crisis where everything was so up, so up, everything so expensive, even the rent. If I need to leave where I live now, I'm gonna go somewhere else for the double, maybe smaller and double of the price. How do you see real estate in America? How it's going?
Well, one of the things with real estate is that its supply is fairly fixed at this certain period of time, and it's one of those assets that accrues value as the economy grows, and especially if the inflation is out of control. In the U.S., we don't feel the inflation on everyday products and services. Instead, all that money is going into assets, and real estate actually has been picking up, a lot of that price changes, I would say. But it's not beyond. I wouldn't say that it's beyond the reach of an average person at this moment. There are definitely pockets of pockets of the United States where you cannot afford to live. I remember talking to somebody who lived in Palo Alto, and the crisis there is that if you're a teacher, for instance, you can't afford to live there because the rent is so high, and your salary isn't big enough to actually allow you to live there, even rent an apartment or whatever. So we had those kind of situations. I think COVID, especially in New York, has actually had an opposite effect. More importantly, on commercial real estate than residential, but residential real estate also suffered because people realized that it's more risky to be in the city where there's a large population density, and where you could contract the deadly virus. And so whoever has a house in the suburbs of New York, they benefited from having that house. And whoever lived in Manhattan, basically or wanted to buy a house in Manhattan, basically that demand shifted elsewhere. I mean, those are the I don't have the data to back it up, but talking to my contacts in these two different cities, and this is the basically general idea I get.
I see. So look, was amazing have you here. I learned so much. You all know so much about so many stuff. Thank you for being
Thanks.
here with me. Would you like to say any final words?
Yes, I mean, if you're still voting, I don't know when this is going to be aired, but if you're still voting on Catalyst, please do consider Pool Tool and supporting Slot Leader as a podcast. Other than that, I'm happy to be part of the community and contribute the best way I can. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm gonna give you the Twitter handle, and I do operate a stake pool called Skylight Pool. My tickers are Sky and Sky 2.
Thank you very much to be here with me. And if you know anything I could be part of or I can contribute with your project, please reach me out. I'll be here.
Thank you so much, Maria.